We've got more from that fiery interview between Elon Musk and Don Lemon. Elon Musk very upset about how it went down. The now viral interview between the ex-billionaire and the former CNN host showcased many heated moments. Lemon pushing back at Musk, who then pushes back at Lemon. Popcorn-worthy exchanges abound, did not leave the audience wanting. Let's take a look at a few more.
Do you think if you moderated yourself more, if there was better content moderation on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the great replacement theory as it relates to
I don't
Democrats,
have to answer these questions.
Great replacement theory as it relates to Jewish people? Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it.
X users went wild, posting highlights from the interview and gotcha moments that maybe Musk skirted.
You want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I want responsibility.
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship.
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. It's not true. I think that there's right and wrong.
And I think that you want censorship.
Musk urged Lemon to tread carefully.
Choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left.
Okay, but so
is this the question you want to ask?
The same question is, you said that they are killing the company, but you're the head of the company. The buck doesn't stop with you?
I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it.
Now, to that particular line of questioning, Elon Musk responded to a clip on Twitter saying, seriously, dumber than a doorstop. And opinion was pretty divided on this. Interestingly, I saw a lot of people who don't really like Don Lemon and don't really respect Don Lemon kind of enjoying this, because they said, well, even though he's dumb, he is, I agree, dumber than a doorknob in their kind of framing. That it's bizarre that Elon Musk seems so flustered and taken aback by some of the questions Don was asking, as though he had never been challenged in these kind of basic ways before. And I even saw some people comparing it to the Raya Chadrick, that lives a TikTok woman, interview with Taylor Lorenz, where it wasn't so much that Taylor Lorenz's questioning was particularly probing or even insightful, that very superficial early questions in the interview seem to get these sort of hesitating non-responses from Tyra. And I wonder what you made of it now that we've had more of an opportunity to digest it.
I mean, it just goes to show you how divided our environment is, that people can see the same interview so many different ways. What I mostly saw was from right-wing people who thought Elon Musk eviscerated, wiped the floor with, destroyed.
But what specifically were the arguments that were being made that they thought were compelling?
They thought that Don Lemon exposed that he does, in fact, just want censorship of things he doesn't like on the platform, and that Elon deftly explains that he's not for that, and also what we discussed yesterday with trying to, with the great replacement, or Don Lemon trying to say that Elon doesn't understand that illegal immigrants don't vote, and then Elon is saying, well, I'm actually talking about, increasing the size of the census, and that there's a couple moments like that.
Right, but I'm asking you to explain the argument, because I saw that too, and I saw people saying, yes, Don Lemon is censorious. That's quite obvious. But that doesn't mean that the question that he asked Elon Musk about whether or not his moderation is being done in an even-handed way on the app isn't a good question. He might be a hypocrite. I think it's fine. I think a lot of people are very willing to say, hey, I'm not throwing my lot in with Don Lemon. I don't politically align with him. He doesn't represent the kind of journalism that I support. But it does seem interesting that it took someone like Don Lemon to confront Elon Musk and ask him basic questions that he doesn't tend to get in interviews, because he frankly doesn't do that many adversarial interviews that I could think of. So, for example, we talked about this yesterday, so I don't really want to rehash this one too much. But on the question of the open borders, I don't think Elon ever has presented a good response. He posted a video since we talked yesterday, in which he says, this is my argument distilled into 2 minutes. And the argument is that with open borders, Democrats want to encourage immigration because they believe, because the census, the congressional districts are based on the total population in the census, not in the population of Americans, but anybody who lives there. Then you can get more congressional representation if you have more people simply living in your district. And the problem with that is that about 60% of all immigrants are settled in red states. Plus, you now have Republicans. You want me to pull up the stat? Yeah, I looked it up last night since our last conversation.
The state where illegal immigrants are overwhelmingly concentrated is California, with more than 2 million.
The American Community Survey attributes 60% of the growth in the immigrant population to GOP states from July of 2019 to July of 2022.
Well, 60% of the growth. That's not saying 60% of illegal immigrants.
Well, that's what's growth. That's what the growth is. So the question is, plus you have on top of that, Republicans championing a policy of shipping undocumented immigrants to blue states to show blue states what the burden is that ostensibly that they're...
where they'd like to ship them is back to Mexico.
Okay, well, this is the reality. So again, someone please explain to me how it is that you can simultaneously make an argument that having more immigrants in your blue state helps you, but it's Republicans who are shipping them from their red states to their blue states ostensibly to make a political point, but undermining this other point that people like Elon Musk are trying to make, that this is a whole big conspiracy theory to gin up the number of congressional districts that blue states have representing them in Congress.
I don't think it's a conspiracy, but I mean, we've discussed this at length now. I guess we disagree. There are a lot of illegal immigrants in California, and that is helping its...
Robby, just contend with the facts. I mean, so this is the kind of thing...
with the facts. There's a growth in red states of illegal immigrant populations. That's the statistic you read. Not that they're most concentrated in those states. They might be. I'd have to look. I looked at the numbers yesterday. There are a whole lot of illegal immigrants in California, New York, Florida, Texas, and Illinois.
I'll read on. So, about 62% of the 3 million increase in the total immigrant population from March of 2019 to March of 2023 has occurred in GOP states, according to...
Total immigrant population. Is that immigrant or illegal immigrant?
Well, with respect to congressional districts, it doesn't really matter.
Well, right, but they're arguing that the law-abiding immigrant population might be Republican voters settling in Republican states, and that's fine.
So but just off the top of your head, Robby, you're making the argument that California has more undocumented...
I'm trying to characterize an argument that...
Okay, well, you're saying that they're making an argument, which they didn't bring up California. You're making that argument, not them. I've never seen them bring up California.
I looked at where the illegal immigrants are concentrated, and it is, in fact, California, New York, Florida, Texas, and Illinois. 3 of those being blue states. And the highest population being California, followed by a significantly smaller number in Texas, Florida.
While California remained the home to most immigrants with about 10.5 million. That's not undocumented. That's just immigrants.
Overall. Right. They have the most illegal.
Texas saw the largest increase with the additional 391,000 immigrants.
Right.
When we're talking
about... We're not objecting to immigrants overall. We're objecting to illegal immigrants.
This is absurd. So now you're making the argument that the point here is that Elon Musk and these others are making is that the growth in congressional districts is advantaging Democrats. But it's Republicans, you do not dispute this, that are saying we're going to bus, ship, and fly immigrants out of our state into blue state. How can you simultaneously...
They're not busing and shipping law-abiding people anywhere.
Undocumented immigrants. How can you simultaneously argue that it's good for politics to keep the undocumented immigrants in your state, to gin up these numbers, what the Democrats have been doing, but also that you want to ship them out of your state?
I mean, I don't want to ship them anywhere. People are doing
Robby, I'm not talking about you. Come on, let's talk about the people who are making
So what you're saying is the tactic of that political stunt works against the project of complaining that says, okay, fine, that doesn't change the underlying reality that illegal immigrants coming in disproportionately going to blue states helps their census, which is the argument that Elon Musk is making. The fact that Ron DeSantis, some other people happen to bus, I don't know, not thousands of them, but like a couple dozen to another state doesn't really seem to matter to me. But
so this is the point that went under the slightest bit of scrutiny. That was one of the more robust arguments, frankly, that Elon Musk was making, because he's been well documented as a reply guy who supported people who were advocating for great replacement theory. This theory is, in fact, great replacement theory. And you can say, fine, I think that it's not racist, that this is a real plan of the Democrats, that I'm allowed to embrace it. But he seemed to be trying to have it both ways. When Don Lemon confronted him in another clip about whether or not he thought that kind of racial discrimination was real or racial inequity was real, and how he had the kind of not standing, but why he felt confident making an argument that seemed to be based in kind of his own experience that black pilots, for example, weren't qualified to fly planes. He couldn't come up with any evidence that there was black pilots, that there was any association between plane crashes and the race of pilots. He didn't really have good answers for Don Lemon. And so I think that Don Lemon, frankly, was making a lot of arguments in a way that I wouldn't have made them, in a way that wasn't the most compelling. But even in that context, it did feel like Elon Musk simply didn't have much in the way of a response.
On great replacement theory, before it was called that, it was just called demographics are destiny. Many Democratic pollsters and pundits and strategists bragged about the fact they thought, after Barack Obama's election, that given how in favor of voting Democratic minority and immigrant voters are, immigrants from South America, this guaranteed a permanent Democratic majority, and we just had to wait for all those old white Republicans to die, and it's going to be Democratic Party forever. That was their idea. It's now been cast as this great replacement theory, racist boogeyman thing. Now, my criticism of the theory is it's not strictly accurate because, in fact, many minority voters falling out of love with Joe Biden right now, many immigrants who come in flee from communist countries and are actually more religious than the existing population and more family-oriented. And it's not obvious to me at all that if you wanted a more Republican or more conservative country, you would prevent people from coming in. In fact, you might do the opposite, totally unencumbered. You would deport some of the existing population in order to bring in more people who feel that way. So that is my criticism of the theory. The fear that you're not going to be able to win anymore your side because people coming in are all entirely of the other political persuasion. I don't know that that's I think that fear is not being borne out. I don't think it's racist or insane to have that fear. I just think it's contradicted by a lot of the data we're having.
This is what Elon Musk is specifically being criticized for. He said, yes, you have said the actual truth in response to the following tweet. Jewish communities have been pushing this exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations coming to the disturbing, the tweets cut off by the ellipses, but the disturbing great replacement, realizing that they're being hoisted by their own petard, as it were. This is what we're talking about. The idea that I don't have to have sympathy with this ethnic group or that ethnic group, that I'm going to be able to throw people under the bus, that we don't have to care about people's humanitarian concerns, X, Y, and Z, because we think that it's best to have a white Christian majority in the United States of America because it preserves the nature of the country. I agree with you about the fact that Democrats have looked to naturally occurring demographic changes because most people in the world are not white, and the nature of immigration is that every place that doesn't have restricted immigration, racial coded covenants the way the United States did for most of the history of the United States are going to become less white over time. The reality of interracial marriage and mixing also means that populations are going to become less white over time because of the nature of the one drop rule and the fact that we consider in this country, used to be under the law and now just largely culturally, people of mixed race not to be white. That means that there's going to be a demographic shift. And the difference is between some people who say that's a fine thing to happen because no race is more important than another race and one culture isn't more important or better than the other, and some people who say that's a bad thing and we have to maintain a white culture majority in the United States of America. There is a concern that conflating that with these kinds of demographic kind of political realities is a way to talk about race and racism and keeping a white majority in a way that seems more politically palatable. If what you say is true, Robby, and immigrants are not leaning blue in the way that people once thought, the way that Democrats once predicted, why is it then that you do have so many Republicans who look fearfully at the border and look fearfully specifically at these demographic changes, legal or illegal, that would make the country less white, if not for a more core preference for whiteness as the default in the United States of America?
Well, first, I don't agree with all of the criticisms that these people make of having immigration. I want more immigration in the country because we need to build things. But again, they're making the census-based argument is that these people inflate, again, the size and the voting power, relative district power of an already blue state. Not that their views are so anathema or that obviously there are concerns raised about crime and other things that I've criticized on the show. So I don't stand by all these things, but I think casting it as racist and trying to preserve the whiteness of the country is certainly what some of the people who bring this up are going for, but that there is a more thoughtful concern that I've disagreed with along the lines I've described it. So you can decide for yourself, viewers, how you feel about it. Tomorrow on Rising, we will be back with another episode of the show. That does it for us for today, obviously. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check us out wherever you listen to podcasts.
Take care.
Bye-bye.